What's up everyone, OJ here, welcome back to another video, and today we've got some interesting information to go over with the recent Stranger of Paradise Final Fantasy Origin Metacritic score and the reviews, because this game is definitely a bit polarizing on both sides. Then also a game that has been leaked for the Nintendo Switch that was pretty good on another platform as a previous console exclusive, so we'll get into that in just a bit. But before we do, please make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you're someone new, and click that notification bell to get my videos first. Now, starting off here with Stranger of Paradise Final Fantasy Origin. Now, this game has been just like crazy, right? The first demo, people said, oh, we don't like that. And the second demo that came out, oh, that's pretty good, transfers over. And then now we have the review scores. And I don't base everything off of review scores. Don't think that I do. I'm just giving you guys some information that is out there. And then, of course, I'll have my own gameplay and my own thought process once I decide to get into the game, because I've already seen the gameplay. I've played it. I think that this is a game that I want to play more. Its campy nature and its weirdness is just something that I want to play, and I do like the Team Ninja style of games. I've always been a fan of their games for decades now at this point. Now let's go ahead and get into it here, because once again, I did say that this game is a bit mixed on its reception, and it's completely mixed, almost deadlocked when it comes to what Metacritic decides a positive score, a mixed score, and a negative score. So out of 43 reviews so far, Stranger of Paradise Final Fantasy Origin has a 72 average. Now, it's only been reviewed on the PlayStation 5. That's the only system that has a aggregate score of what's going on, but it is available on pretty much everything else but the Nintendo Switch. So there are 21 positive reviews, there are 21 mixed reviews, and there is one negative review. So that's what I mean by polarizing both sides. I mean, people are thinking that it's a good game, but not so sure. There's things that are holding it back. But for the most part, most people seem to feel that it's a solid game. Now, let's go ahead and get into the top scores. We'll look at some of the lower top scores, the mid scores, and of course, the mixed or negative scores as well. So, RPG Fan, which is a site that I go to every now and then, gave it an 87. That's currently the highest score that it has. So it doesn't even have any 9 out of 10s or above right now. So RPG Fan has this to say about the game. Despite all the memes and jokes, Stranger of Paradise Final Fantasy Origin is a surprisingly earnest tale tied to an outstanding combat system that is impossible to put down. Not only that, but it somehow manages to remain reverent to the original Final Fantasy and the series as a whole. I think anyone who enjoys both action RPGs and Final Fantasy will enjoy this game too, okay? So pretty good there, and I can see that from the demo. The gameplay in the game seems to be the strong suit, and maybe the story and some of the other things aren't so good about it, but from what I understand and from what I've played, the combat seems to be very good and top notch. So let's go ahead and go down to about an 8 out of 10. So RPG Site had this to say, another site that I do go to as well. Stranger of Paradise Final Fantasy Origin is undoubtedly a fun, chaotic romp that will delight number crunchers and action RPG aficionados. Even though I found the characters and some of the story lacking, I still had a really good time testing out new jobs, exploring the various levels, seeing all the Easter eggs, and devising strategies to tackle the level bosses. I'm looking forward to grinding gear with friends and finding out what the future holds with this new spin-off series of Final Fantasy. So once again, another good site kind of saying, hey, the character story might be lacking, but hey, there are tiebacks to the original Final Fantasy, so if you're into Final Fantasy, you'll get those. And the combat, once again, is very good, and we're seeing that across the board here. Everyone's saying that the combat is very good in this game. Now, let's go over to IGN as well. They gave it an 8 out of 10, and they had this to say. Stranger of Paradise Final Fantasy Origin story doesn't come together until the final hours, but when it does, it pairs nicely with a solid and engaging action combat system and a strong dose of Final Fantasy nostalgia. So once again, very good on the combat. Story kind of comes together late, but they do like it overall with that. Now let's go ahead and get into some of the mixed or yellow scores, as I like to talk about it. So GameSpot has a pretty big excerpt on it here, so let's go ahead and take a look at what GameSpot had to say on the matter. While it might be confusing and memey, disjointed and weird, Stranger of Paradise is also a lot of fun. It's full of cool combat with a wide variety of options and a job system that lets you customize your playstyle or just try out what feels like 30 different ones. Its challenge makes every fight a battle of skill, while also giving you the tools to feel like a ludicrously powerful Final Fantasy badass. And despite being bizarrely delivered and wildly strange, there's delight in uncovering what the hell is actually going on in the game's story and the weird ideas it brings to bear on the Final Fantasy series. Stranger of Paradise is mostly a more focused version of Final Fantasy that shows some different directions for the series from its traditional games, even if those directions take it down paths that are sometimes a bit stranger. So it seems like they like the game from that last bit there a lot more than their 7 out of 10 or 70 score does say. But once again, combat is really good, so people are loving the combat in this game and they're thinking that it's pretty good there. And I do want to get into some of the 65s or 60s review scores. So VG247, a site that I used to go to quite a bit back in the day, had this to say on the game. It gave it a 6 out of 10 or a 3 out of 5. They might use that scale. And they say Stranger of Paradise Final Fantasy Origin is a B-movie game. It's loud, dumb, and full of fun. You have to ignore a lot of issues if you want to extract the joy from its chaotic heart, but once you commit, toy around with the weapons, penetrate its poorly explained mechanics, and forgive Jack for his one-dimensional personality, you're left with a game that's part Devil May Cry, part Neo, and part Face Off, which was a movie with John Travolta and also Nicolas Cage that I really liked back in the day. And let's be honest, who doesn't want to play that? I do want to play it. That's why I'm talking about it right now. So it does seem like the game is campy, weird, has some issues, but has like those core things that are going to endure it to fans. I almost think of it as like a No More Heroes situation where there's a lot of issues, there's a lot of story problems, there's a lot of things that are just wacky and doesn't make sense or just feels really out of place. But if you get the references, if you really just kind of hone in and play the game, there's a lot of fun to be had despite the flaws in the game. So there's that as well. Now let's go and get into the lowest score here, and this just seems to be a bit ridiculous. I saw quite a number of people complaining about this because I think that 20 or 2 out of 10 or 1 out of 5, as maybe it was said, is a bit too low. That means the game is broken beyond belief and nothing works in the game, but we'll talk about the review. So this comes from NME, and they say Stranger of Paradise is mostly just a mess. When the gameplay works, it works surprisingly well, but that wasn't often enough to make it fun for the entire runtime. It's hard to make a judgment on the story, mostly because there isn't much of a narrative, but it's even more disappointing because I wanted to spend more time with the characters because they're far from unlikable. A grand ode to Final Fantasy, it is not, and it fails to appeal to the JRPG lover in me on most counts. So it seems like he's just not liking the characters and story, which led to the game getting such a low score from him. He said when the combat works, I guess there's issues with the combat. I haven't read that yet, and from what I've played, I didn't really see any issues with the combat to where it doesn't work or it breaks or something like that. So I'm not exactly sure what's going on there, but either way, that was the lowest score of the game. So overall, it's looking like it's a solid game, but it definitely seems like it's not a game that you have to rush out there and buy unless you're a huge Final Fantasy 1 fan, a huge Neo, or a huge like action game fan, and you just really want to play this game based off of the demo. That's what I would say to do. I wouldn't buy it based off of these reviews, whether it's good or bad. I would buy it based off of your own playtime. Go there, play the demo on your PS5, your PS4, Xbox One, whatever system that you have, and make your decision based off of that. If you can wait for the game to get a discount, since it is going to be a full price game at launch, you can wait and play it later. There's no need to rush out and buy every single game no matter what. You can always wait, play it later. There's always times or lulls in the summer or something like that to where you can pick up games or play different things. So it's up to you how you want to do it. I just wanted to give you guys a little bit of insight on what's going on with these review scores. But yeah, I didn't review necessarily high, but it's not bad. 72 is just a solid game. Not an amazing game, but a solid game by the review standards. But once again, I played it. I think I'm going to have fun with it, but probably not a day one rush out there and buy it type of game for me, at least. But what are your thoughts when it comes to Stranger of Paradise Final Fantasy Origin on the PlayStation, Xbox, PC? Are you planning on picking it up? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. All right, and moving on to the next topic here. It looks like we have a former PlayStation exclusive, console exclusive at least, that's going to be coming over or leaked for the Nintendo Switch. So Fist, Forged in Shadow Torch, has been rated for the Nintendo Switch in Taiwan. And guys, when this type of stuff happens, it usually is happening for real, because the publisher and the developers won't pay for the classification or listing if it's not an actual thing. And in order to pay for the listing for it to show up on these rating boards, you have to actually certify yourself. It can't just be anybody, Wikipedia type of page or anything like that. Anybody can just pay for it. You actually have to have the right context and be that they actually check. So I do think that this will be happening, and many games get leaked or somewhat low-key shadow announced this type of way with the ratings boards, whether it's from Australia or also in Taiwan, which we do see quite a bit. So the Taiwan Digital Game Rating Committee has rated TI Games' developed side-scrolling action game Fist Forged in Shadow Torch for the Nintendo Switch. Now, Fist Forged in Shadow Torch first launched for the PlayStation 5 and PlayStation 4 on September 7, 2021. I remember Sony talking about this game. I think it was at like a State of Play or something. It looked kind of cool. Followed by the PC via Steam on October 3rd and Epic Game Store on December 13th. Now, neither publisher Billy, I'm not even sure that's how you say that name, but what's up, Billy, nor the developer have officially announced a Switch version. Now, here's a little bit of an overview about the game, because I think if you're an old school Metroid fan or old school 2D beat 'em up fan, this might be a game that you're going to be interested in, because it got some good reviews on the PlayStation systems. Now, after the animals of Torch City were defeated by the invading robotic legion in the Resistance War 6 years ago, former Resistance fighter Rayton the Rabbit has kept a low profile. The arrest of a friend meant he had no choice but to put his giant metal fist and fight against those oppressing him. Little did he know that he would soon be caught up in a maelstrom of conspiracies involving the Legion and Resistance and rat gangs. So it is definitely a animal showdown here when it comes down to it. Now, here are the key features of this game. You have seamless maps filled with challenges to explore. Explore more than a dozen unique areas in an action platformer style map. The core combat, puzzle solving, and platform mechanics are complemented by countless hidden rooms, secret passages, and shortcuts. With all kinds of rewarding challenges for players to complete, maps are loaded on the fly to avoid frequent transitions, making the massive Torch City feel even more detailed and alive. Now, you also have an arcade combat system with seamless switching between 3 weapons. The fist, drill, and the whip are 3 weapons with completely different fighting styles that offer seamless switching between high combo, high damage, and long range attacks. Pummel the enemy by choosing the most appropriate form of attack for the situation. Players will be challenged by dozens of distinct types of enemies, each with their own weapons and attacks, all working together to bring the player down. Unique bosses with unusual fighting styles provide a new and unique gaming experience. Then last but definitely not least, you have a diesel punk aesthetics crafted with Unreal Engine 4. The game's diesel punk aesthetics were inspired by diesel combustion engines that were blended with an eastern cityscape from a bygone era to give Torch City a signature one-of-a-kind visual feel. The stark contrast between the furry animals and sterile mechanical soldiers introduce the theme of conflict in the game's story. The realistic 3D visuals powered by Unreal Engine 4 combined with physically based rendering take the action platformer genre to a whole new level of graphics quality. So yeah, this is one of those games that definitely looked interesting when I saw it back on the PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5. Looks like it's a Metroidvania style of game. You have all these different puzzles to solve, different rooms, hidden items, things like that to collect, to upgrade your character and play through in a 2D style. And yeah, it looks like it's going to be a game that's coming to Nintendo Switch with Unreal Engine 4, which does run on the platform. Quite a number of Unreal Engine 4 games at this point on the Nintendo Switch. So I would not be surprised to see this game come over to the Switch platform, as the system is just absolutely killing it with these type of 2D games. Metroid Dread has been absolutely phenomenal, along with a number of other 2D old school type of games and even new takes on the 2D gameplay style. So this is just another one of those games that's probably going to do pretty good when it eventually comes over to the Nintendo Switch. So what are your thoughts on this game, in addition to Stranger of Paradise Final Fantasy Origin, with the review scores? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. All right, guys, that wraps it up for this video here. Thank you so much for watching. I do appreciate it. Please make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you're someone new, click that notification bell, and we will see you for the next video. Peace.